welcome to Comm 101. I'm Eileen, and we've made it to week 3. Today we're talking about the Commission on Presidential Debates and how we've ended up in this situation where it seems like we're constantly voting for the lesser of two evils in every single general election. Picture it, 1960, Nixon versus Kennedy, the first televised presidential debate. The debate is sponsored by the three major networks, CBS, NBC, and ABC, which, as I've mentioned in the past, are owned by you, but again, we'll get into that down the road. Fast forward to 1976, Ford versus Carter. The League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan and nonprofit organization, sponsors this debate, and they continue to sponsor the debates until 1984. And then, in 1987, the chairs of both the Republican National Convention and the Democratic National Convention hold a joint press conference. They announce the creation of the Commission on Presidential Debates, and they state that both of their parties would only participate in CPD-sponsored debates from this point forward. The League of Women Voters criticized this move, stating, "I think they're trying to steal the debates from the American voters." In the joint press conference that the DNC and RNC held, they acknowledged that it was unlikely that third-party candidates would be included in CPD debates. In 1992, the CPD decided to allow Ross Perot, your man with the charts, into all three presidential debates. They, at the time, had no explicit rules barring anybody with low polling numbers or anything else from their debate stages. They just previously didn't have any third-party candidates on the stages. He ended up taking 19% of the popular vote in the 1992 presidential general election. And so, because he did very well, the CPD decided to exclude him, while still having no explicit rules, from the 1996 debate stage. Regarding the 1996 Commission on Presidential Debates decision to exclude Ross Perot from the debate stage, the New York Times editorial page stated, and I quote, "By deciding yesterday to exclude Ross Perot from this year's debates, the commission proved itself to be a tool of the two dominant parties rather than a guardian of the public interest." Now, I agree with the New York Times in 1996, though I'm not sure why the New York Times or anybody else thought that the CPD was ever a guardian of the public interest, seeing as it was created and run and managed by the two major parties. In the year 2000, perhaps to avoid further scrutiny by the New York Times editorial board et al., the CPD did adopt new criteria for their debates. Candidate must meet all constitutional requirements for eligibility for the office of the president. The candidate must be on the ballot in enough states to be able to win 270 electoral votes. And the candidate must be supported by 15% of the electorate as determined by the average of 5 national public opinion polls conducted by organizations selected by the CPD. Okay, so fast forward to 2024, we're post-COVID, we've got some big problems. Ronna McDaniel, the then chair of the RNC, said of the CPD, an organization that, again, the RNC helped create and still, helped manage, that it was biased and that we will find newer, better debate platforms. Now, admittedly, part of the argument from both parties about the CPD at this point is that the debates are scheduled too late in the election cycle. They usually don't start until September. But again, that's also part of a problem that is created by the RNC and the DNC. Why are they not having their official nominating conventions until late July and mid-August? Super Tuesday in 2024 was March 5th. All of the primaries were completed by mid-March in 2024. Why weren't the nominating conventions being held until the end of the summer? So in November of 2023, the CPD announced their debate locations and schedule for the 2024 presidential election. And on June 24th of 2024, the CPD released their debate locations because the candidates from both parties, then Joe Biden and Donald Trump, said that neither of them would participate in the CPD's debates. The Biden camp gave 3 reasons why they wouldn't participate. They said that the debates would not be completed until after early voting had started, the debates had become a spectacle, and that the CPD can't enforce its own rules. Again, same point as I made when we talked about Ronna McDaniel's statement, but the DNC is part of what created the CPD, and the DNC still helps to manage the CPD, or at least lackeys of the DNC and the RNC still help to manage the CPD. So instead, both the Biden and Trump camps accepted offers from CNN for a debate on June 27th and ABC for a debate on September 10th. Both CNN and ABC just used the original eligibility rules from the CPD. At this point, RFK Jr., who was still running as a third-party candidate at this time and was not yet making a mockery of Health and Human Services, but was still not on enough state ballots to win 270 electoral votes, accused both Trump and Biden of colluding to exclude him and of being afraid that they'd lose to him. The CNN debate went as planned. Vice President Harris then replaced President Biden as the official nominee ahead of the ABC debate, and she debated then candidate Trump during the ABC debate. In May of 2024, a Harvard University Center for American Political Studies poll found that 71% of those surveyed were in favor of allowing third-party candidates into debates. So what does all this mean? Has there always been collusion? Will there continue to be collusion preventing any viable third-party candidates from getting their voices heard in a reasonable time frame on a national debate stage, especially in a world where we continue to lose local and small media outlets in an effort to boost the 2 major party candidates? Yeah, I think that's pretty obvious that has been what has been happening since the 70s. Should we maybe listen to 71% of Americans who think that we should allow third-party candidates on the debate stage? Yeah, I think so, because that's about 20% more than either of the last 2 people that were elected president got in the popular vote. And obviously this was a poll, it wasn't the entire electorate, but I don't know. Seems like a good number to me if 71% of those polled think that maybe they'd like to hear from somebody else. Seems pretty reasonable. See you next time, Comm 101.